We are back here on the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey, producer Chris Daughtry behind the scenes of today's show. We'll be talking a lot on the coaching search for the Dallas Cowboys. Probably not relevant to what they were going to do, but still relevant overall. Ben Johnson is taking the Chicago Bears head coaching gig. So if we were still harboring hopes of Ben Johnson even getting a phone call from the Dallas Cowboys, that one is off the board. He is going to head to the Chicago Bears because why would this team do anything normal in their coaching search? Speaking of not normal stuff, Brian Schottenheimer has gotten more buzz in the past 24, 48 hours or so. Let's get rid of that extra H there, by the way. Make it a CH. It should be D. Head coaching buzz. I have thoughts. Give me your one-word reaction to this, the growing buzz of Brian Schottenheimer as a potential Cowboys head coach candidate. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Excuse me. I'll give some shout-outs here. No, WTF. Talk about Ben Johnson, fair. Bandwagoning, okay. Nauseating, disappointment. Why? No. A lot of no's in there. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a dumb path to potentially consider. I ranted about this yesterday. Like at the end of the show, I'm like, this is a really bad idea. I hate it. And then it has only picked up more steam since then, which we'll break down here on today's video. I don't. No. Let's just be serious. Like, no one's even asking Schottenheimer interviews as an OC right now. No one. It's like, what are we doing here? Stop it. Be normal. Stupid is mine. Dumb. Typical. Next. Owen Santini becomes our coach. You'll win games, but you ain't going to win any game that matters. Someone's like, who's Brian Schottenheimer? People asked that about Leslie Frazier. He's supposed to interview today. I haven't seen the details on that yet. Because the Cowboys have been announcing stuff, but I'm sure they'll do that at some point in the near future. So, give me your one-word reaction to the Brian Schottenheimer head coaching buzz as we get more into coaching conversations here. Today's show is made possible by GameTime. GameTime's got a new feature. It's called GameTime Picks. It makes getting tickets to see events even easier. It filters out the fluff to only show you the best deals on great seats. Don't waste time searching through thousands of different tickets for your next event. Download the GameTime app, create your account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download GameTime today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, all guaranteed. Today's show also made possible by PrizePicks, the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. Now, there's been 2 completed interviews, one more in Leslie Frazier, and then, of course, all this Brian Schottenheimer betting favorite buzz. So we'll make this the pin poll today, since it kind of doesn't sound like Ben Johnson or Deion Sanders is even going to get an interview from the reporting that went on over the weekend. So pick your head coach. For the record, it is stupid. These are the 4 names. This is dumb. This is not how it's supposed to be. But it's where we're at somehow. KM for Kellen Moore, RS for Robert Saleh, LF for Leslie Frazier, BS for Brian Schottenheimer. 49% say Kellen Moore, 35% say Robert Saleh, 7% for Leslie Frazier. Schottenheimer's got 10% over Frazier, which I actually might take Frazier over Schottenheimer, frankly, which isn't a good thing either. I do think that the gap between Moore/Saleh and Frazier/Schottenheimer, yeah, that's about what I think it should be. I think it's, again, not people saying none of the above. But there's a GIF I've been using a lot. It's from it was the Mila Kunis spy movie with the girl from SNL. I always forget her name. And there's the clip of like her going, "How are those my only two options?" That's how I feel about everything about this Cowboys coaching search. How are these my options? Why am I interviewing two coaches that nobody else wants to interview? Like, why? It doesn't make sense to me. KMRSLFBS for the candidates on that front. We're going to some super chats that have come in as well and check in on the pin poll voting here. Justin, would you rather for rounds 1/2 Luther Burden, that is the Missouri wide receiver? I'll try to be better about mentioning the team and position because I forget that sometimes to say. Omarion Hampton, the UNC running back, or Ashton Jeanty from Boise State and Matthew Golden from Texas. Also hate this team. Why can't they be normal for once? First off, my answer to both of these statements is probably yes. If you told me Omarion Hampton and Luther Burden or Jeanty and Matthew Golden, like I'm pretty happy with that no matter what. I think you're getting a very good receiver and a good running back, or a very good running back, or a great running back and a very good receiver. Both those make me pretty happy. I wonder if your second round pick gets to you. So I would be very much on board with either of those paths. And also, yes, just be normal one damn time, please. From Max, how do you feel about Coach Cooper Rush 15 years from now? I think both your top two quarterbacks on your roster have like coaching ability. I think Dak, like you've got different types of like quarterbacks go do this, right? Like some become coaches, some become analysts, some become like front office members. Like I think Troy could be a good front office member. Aikman's a really good broadcaster. Romo's a really good broadcaster. I do think Dak would be terrible as a broadcaster. He is very boring. It's kind of like how Garrett is not a good broadcaster. Like he's better on Notre Dame, but he's very boring too. I think both Rush and Dak have a lot of the, when you don't have the same physical skill sets that the top end guys do, you can often end up being a coach there. Let's talk drafts. Let's get to TTVBTW super chat. I don't know what that is in the end. Who do you want the Cowboys to draft in round 1? Let me know in the comment section of today's video. Lots of answers for that one. Someone says, B Fatty's trolling. That's having some good fun there. Ashton Jeanty or Quinshon Judkins. Judkins you can wait on. He's not going to go, I don't think, first 2 rounds. A lot of Jeanty's in there. Understandable. I do wonder if the Bears are going to take Ashton Jeanty at 10 now. Like that one kind of is like, oh, that one makes sense, don't it? That one wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, frankly. Of note, you were still you need to lose 2 more games to jump the Bears in the draft order. So need to lose 2 more games there. Abdul Carter, I'd love it. I don't see how he gets out of the top 5. Or at least top 7, somewhere in that range. He's off the board well before you. And you were like 4 games away from having a top 5 pick. So you weren't really all that close. Jalen Walker's an option. Emeka Ibuka's an option. Emeka Ibuka, excuse me. Mason Graham. Doubt he gets there, but I would have interest there. For sure. Not Quinn Ewers. No. I don't think Quinn's good. Receiver help? Absolutely need receiver help. Not a doubt there. TT, how can people want more? The whole point of letting Big Mike go was for a fresh start on everything. Give me Robert, no questions. I don't disagree with that, yeah. I think that there is differences between McCarthy and Kellen, and those differences in how they wanted to run things were a factor in why Kellen and Mike and the Cowboys parted ways a while ago. But if you do want the fresh start, then Saleh's your best choice of those options. And as I hate putting this qualifier and everything, but also there's a dozen coaches you could have interviewed too still. It doesn't have to be just that one. I hate it. I don't like this. I don't like having 4 options, 3 interviews, and now there's been more buzz of they might not drag their feet as much as they thought. What are we doing out here? You should have done your interviews for the Lions and Chiefs guys weeks ago. You didn't. You never even talked to Ben Johnson. I still don't know if they were going to. and that was stupid if they weren't going to. I don't know if they're going to interview with Aaron Glenn, which I absolutely would. Jacob Marshall, if the Cowboys draft Jalen Walker, the Georgia linebacker edge hybrid, and Cam Scatterby, the Arizona State back. I think Walker, if you don't go like receiver or Jeanty, and the DTs, maybe Graham's not there. I think Walker is a quality option for you. I think what he can do as a linebacker edge, and you got some speed and athletic ability, I think that's probably a quality option. I would not be mad at that. Let's get to Super Chat from, who's next here? It kind of lagged out on me a little bit there. Bryce is the next one here. Any combo of Jeanty, Burden, Starks, Banks, round 1, Golden, Hampton, Jihad Campbell, Deion Walker, round 2. A lot of good names there. I think I'd rank them probably in the order you have them for round 1. Not necessarily on my board, but how I think fits best for the Cowboys and their needs. And then I might flip Hampton in front of Golden, maybe, depending on, of course, we'll do it running back in the first round. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to take first two rounds. I am really intrigued by Deion Walker. He also scares me. I am scare-roused when it comes to Deion Walker, because that is a freaky athlete who moves really well for his size, has been able to drop into coverage as like a 6'6", 350-pound defensive tackle, but he also plays like he's 6'6". I don't mean that in a good way. He's very plays very tall, and I don't like that. I don't know if Jihad Campbell gets to you. There are some similarities between like Jalen Walker and Jihad Campbell. I think Campbell's a better off-ball linebacker. I know you probably got thoughts here, Chris, if you want to on Campbell as our Bama guy. I think Walker's probably a better blitzer, if that makes sense. What you got, Chris?
I would just say he's probably better off-ball. I know coming in out of high school, he was an edge rusher, but then they moved him more to that off-ball spot, and this past season, he just went absolutely crazy. He was definitely Alabama's best player on defense this year.
He was very, very impressive. But I think you've got a lot of good names, and that matters in terms of, I think there will be good players for you, especially in the first 3 rounds. Then it gets NIL, COVID year still being an impact, kind of dials things back a little bit with, I think, just the depth overall. Now, if you haven't already, do me a favor, like today's show. We'll get to the big TD the One super chat here as well in just a second. Goal was always a 50% like ratio. We almost got to 69 likes off the top. We are at 66, so we're a long way to go, about less than a fifth of the likes here. Like the video, free, simple, easy to do, please and thank you. Just helps us out pretty significantly from the just getting more people in, more audience, and keep the lights on here at the Cowboys Report and at Chat Sports. So like the video if you haven't already done so. Get to big TD the One super chat. First off, good initials there, TD. Like it. Trade for Jonathan Taylor, draft wide receiver and defense. It's a great plan. Why would the Colts trade away Jonathan Taylor, though? Like their offense is built around Jonathan Taylor. They're not gonna go down that path. They're going to keep him. Draft receiver and defense, though, I think you need like an impact guy, like splash guy on offense. Hate to use that phrase with the Cowboys, but I think you need it. And I think you need depth on defense, too. William Cook. Cowboys need to sign for need in free agency, go BPA in the draft. This is how every team should operate. Like, you can get even some like the anti-running back people, you can get them more on board with, hey, take Ashton Jeanty in round 1. If you feel your obvious wide receiver 2 need somehow, re-sign like a Rico Dowdle or somebody of that ilk to pair in the backfield on a cheap contract. Maybe add offensive line help. Probably be okay at tight end, but then you can still go BPA at tight end if there's someone you love like a Tyler Warren or whatever. You can add defensive end depth, add much needed defensive tackle help. You are in bad straits with what's on your roster right now there. Add a veteran linebacker, add secondary depth. You do those things. Like you have a lot of needs. You cannot fill all of them through the draft. I would like to add another wide receiver. I think you need one pretty badly. With Rico a free agent, I think 2 backs are needed in some capacity. I'd like to figure out what my offensive line plan is. That might be a cut and a sign. That might be just a signing. Might be a draft pick. I think you could use one more piece there and growth from other young guys and maybe go find a vet left tackle if you don't trust Tyler Guyton. Those are needs there. You got several defensive end free agents, got to retain one or two or sign one or two. You need multiple defensive tackles if you don't re-sign Osa Odigizua. You've got one guy on the roster I think you can play right now, and that's a guy that I don't like playing that much, Mozzie Smith. You need a veteran linebacker. You want to figure out some corner depth, and you got to make decisions on your safeties as well. So you can't fix all of those via the draft. But if you create your $75, $80, $90 million in salary cap space, and you sign 7 or 10 guys, which is completely doable, even the $5 million price tag guys, if you sign 7 Eric Kendricks, now you're cooking a little bit here. That's not that unreasonable. Ecuador Man says Philly or Baltimore offensive line come with Ashton SMH. I assume you're referencing this part. And I do agree with what you're mostly saying here. Running backs, and I'd use the analogy of like their ceiling raisers. There was a different one from Ben Fennell who does some good work. He called backs are gasoline. Where if you have the tinder, if you have the match, it can really light on fire. But if you just throw gasoline on stuff, it just kind of smells. And it's not really it's not actually good for you. So I do think you're onto a right part where if you're able to build the rest of the supporting cast, you get a nice little fire going, and then you toss the gasoline on already with the fire already on. It's good shape. Cowboys should draft Drew Aller. Well, A, he's going back to school, and B, he's still all potential. He didn't play well against Notre Dame. It's kind of been Aller's thing. Like his production against now going to be inflated. Actually, not really that inflated in the end. Like top 15 versus not top 15 teams. It's kind of bad actually. It's not. It's in many ways indicative of the entire Penn State team. Like they don't do a good job against the better competition, depending on how we want to count like SMU and Boise State in that one. So he went back to school. You want to have 2026 quarterback talk, we'll have it in 2026. Coming up on today's live show, we'll talk coaching staff updates here for the Cowboys, things that I don't like. Cowboys draft targets as well. Mel Kiper has his big board out. We'll look at how it could look for the Cowboys. Mailbag, get your questions in right now via hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat. I will say lots of different super thanks to get to, so Super Chats might need to be the way to go on that front if you want to get on. And more Cowboys rumors. Draft, we'll mention Ashton Jeanty, and trades as well. All coming up live here on the Cowboys Report. We'll begin today's show with the latest on Brian Schottenheimer's maybe candidacy for the Cowboys head coaching position. There's been more reports and buzz and betting odds and a whole lot more for Brian Schottenheimer to be the next Dallas Cowboys head coach. Before we break that down, give me your one-word reaction to the Schottenheimer head coaching buzz. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Couple different reports. Bobby Belt mentioning this morning that the buzz is getting louder on that front. DraftKings installed him as the new betting favorite after it had been Kellen Moore and had been Deion Sanders before that. And I will give a lot of credit to Joe Hoyt, by the way, who was early on him as a potential dark horse candidate for the Cowboys head coach. In fact, Joe had reported that he had been given 3 names. It was Kellen Moore, Robert Saleh, and also Brian Schottenheimer. So, tip of the hat there. Here's what Joe wrote over the weekend. There's also the question of how much Schottenheimer was allowed to do as an offensive play caller the past 2 seasons. As part of this is part of the reason why there's interest in Schottenheimer. There's intrigue in Dallas about what Schotty could do if he was the main play caller. I hope we all realize how insane that sounds. How crazy this is. The pitch being given, and Joe's not advocating for it, but it's the rationale behind it in part of, we want to keep some stability for the offense, blah, blah, blah. And hey, we don't know how much he did last time, so let's see what he does this time around. We don't know how good of a coach Brian Schottenheimer actually is, so let's make him the head coach and find out. What kind of pitch is this? This is a half-baked at best idea that doesn't track with me. He's a non-play caller, but hey, maybe he'd be good as the play caller. Let's make him the head coach. What? Adam Schefter reporting this today. To the best of my knowledge, he hadn't even interviewed for the job, and Dallas hadn't approached him about being the head coach. I think the Cowboys love and respect Brian Schottenheimer, and they want him there. But I don't know that that's as the head coach right now. Again, the process will unfold. We'll see what twists and turns it takes. Maybe it leads them back to Schottenheimer as a head coach candidate. Now, for me, kind of like the Deion stuff, this gets real with an interview. If you get an interview, or you have an interview with Brian Schottenheimer, okay, this all kind of gets real. Because even as crazy as the Cowboys are, I don't think they'd hire somebody without ever giving them a head coaching interview. They gave Garrett one back when they hired him, after all. I pray it does not get real. I don't like this. I don't even know how much I love Schottenheimer as the OC, which also is kind of what Nick Harris mentioned, that, hey, maybe Schottenheimer's back as the OC, regardless of who that coach is, which, again, is kind of my issue of, like, okay, we're picking the entire staff right now except for the guy in charge. Like, why are we doing that? That's not how that's ass backwards. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know if I want him in charge of my offense because he's had, like, one time he had an offense that was top 10 in yards. Once. A couple years he was fringe top 10 or near it. And in points where I think he did 2 or 3. You know, as much as I don't really want to just give the job to Kellen, I don't want to just give the job to Kellen. He's been top 10 in half his career as an OC. So I don't know if I just want to, like, let Schottenheimer run the plays and do everything, because he also will probably keep Mike Solari as the O-line coach, because it was when Schottenheimer was the OC in Seattle, Solari was his offensive line coach. So I don't really think that would change. So I don't know if I just want to, if I hire a defensive mind, if I just want to, like, give the entire reins of the offense to Schottenheimer. Like, I don't know if that's a great path. And also, again, we're forcing the new head coach to pick his OC. That's failed. Why do we keep doing that? So hypothetically, grade the potential hire of Brian Schottenheimer. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know at the pinned comment of today's show, especially if the ad comes here on YouTube. Now, Kellen Moore does kind of sounds like is the favorite still for the Cowboys job. A lot of the local reporters, guys like John Machota, guys like Nick Harris, I think Clarence Hill still says it as well, they seem to think that Kellen Moore is the favorite to be that Cowboys head coach. And maybe all the Schottenheimer stuff is the old, let's just leak a worse name so we don't have to deal with the no Kellen Moore campaign. Maybe it's the backup plan. You know, there's been some buzz that maybe the Cowboys don't want to do a long search because they're idiots anyway. And you can't hire Kellen right now because he's got an Eagles conference championship game and they're favored to make it to the Super Bowl. And are the Cowboys patient enough to get their guy, so to speak, and wait until early February to do it? But either way, neither are good options. Like, I don't like this plan of, shoot, we interviewed 4 people, got to pick one. How are those my only options? How are my options right now? Kellen Moore, Robert Saleh, Leslie Frazier, and Brian Schottenheimer. 2 of those guys, no one else has requested to interview. And Schotty's last interview for head coach was like 10 years ago. What are we doing? And in the end, although I do not want to give the job to Kellen Moore, straight up, I think that's a terrible process. I think I'd rather have Kellen Moore over Schottenheimer. I think it's actually, Kellen's a better offensive coordinator. I don't think Kellen's top 5 right now, but I don't think Schottenheimer's top 10. So, but again, why are those my 2 options? Why do I only have 2 apparent paths here? Why can't I do a real coaching search? I've got names that we'll get to here as part of this, but my real concern is the reason why there's only a few names is because they're trying to force the staff on this coaching staff again. Now, today's show is made possible by GameTime. GameTime has a new feature. It's called GameTime Picks. It makes getting tickets for events even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to only show you incredible deals on great seats. So you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets to find the best value. It is curation to make it easier to find better value on tickets for sports, concert, comedy, theater. You know, maybe don't go to a Cowboys game this year. Maybe still watch, but you know, maybe do something else on with your money and take the wife to a theater show or something. Use the all-in price feature to see your total cost up front, so there are no surprise fees at checkout. The game time guarantee is this. You find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, Create your account and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today for last-minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. I do think that looming presence of Jason Witten could be a problem here. A lot of the theories on all this different coaching stuff are the Cowboys want to have Witten on staff to groom as a future head coach. And as it turns out, most head coach candidates don't want to take a job to in part train their replacement. That's not something most guys like to do because, that's stupid. That's not how any other organization operates. The closest you get is you hired a 75-year-old with the plan of it being 2 or 3 years and somebody along with him. Still, I don't understand how this team seemingly, I'm still on the seemingly part, is focused on making an assistant coach the priority. Of, we're going to hire somebody, but you got to hire never coached in the NFL or college, has only coached children, Jason Witten. How does that make sense? I don't care if Jason Witten's on my staff next year. I am like, oh man, we got it. No, I don't have to keep Witten. I don't need Witten. I can hire a tight ends coach. I have a good one right now who I kind of want to make my own line coach, but still. Your job is to hire the best head coach right now. And the Cowboys' actions do not indicate to me that that's what they are currently doing. We are 281 subscribers away from 207,000. Hit that sub button if you haven't already, youtube.com/CowboysTV. Now, the Cowboys had the chance, to an extent, to interview more actually qualified head coach candidates. I got a couple names I'll mention, the biggest of which is, well, the name you can no longer interview. Ben Johnson is no longer eligible. He is taking the Chicago Bears head coaching job, so that crosses him off your list. I never really thought they were going to interview him, but so be it. Aaron Glenn, more on him in a second. Todd Monken, the Ravens OC. And if you wanted Bobby Slowick, which I didn't love what I saw last year, but he's a real candidate at least. Other teams have called about him. Those guys are all eligible to interview starting today. Now, the Cowboys are playing catch-up in the event that they wanted to interview Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn has already taken first interviews. He has in-person kind of finalist interviews set up with the Jets on Tuesday and the Saints, if he gets out of the Jets building, on Wednesday. So the earliest you can interview Aaron Glenn is Thursday. And I don't know if you're going to even have a chance to interview him. Because again, your process sucked so bad at the beginning, you're playing catch-up and you're very much behind the 8 ball in this whole damn thing. Now, I am open to a lot of different names to interview because I want to do a real search, and the Cowboys not done one so far. So name a coach who you want to interview. Let me know in the comments section in today's video. Now, these 4 names have been eligible if you wanted to. Brian Flores. Cowboys have had a week plus to interview him. It's like they're just not going to. Pete Carroll might end up getting the Raiders job with them missing out on Ben Johnson. But again, if you're going to force someone to hire Witten, I guess just run it back in Dallas with Pete Carroll, Brian Schottenheimer as your head coach OC. It's not overly appealing, but I'd rather have Pete Carroll as my head coach than Brian Schottenheimer. Call me crazy on that front. Doug Peterson, I don't want to do that one, but always gets linked. John Gruden, kind of something similar. Steve Spagnuolo, Cliff Kingsbury, Joe Brady are all not yet eligible, so you have to wait if you even wanted to interview those guys. My issue remains this. The Cowboys have a head coaching opening. I don't think it's the most coveted job opening. I don't think it's the least coveted job opening. The fact that you're not even trying to interview this pool of candidates, it just continues to make it look like an unserious organization. Because somehow, these are your 4 options. Because Dion doesn't seem very likely at the moment. And again, Dion gets real if there's an interview. And kind of a lot of the reporting of the week was yeah, Dion's not going to happen. Which just kind of falls back to the, hey, we didn't know what we were doing. Let's get Dion linked here for attention. And Dion gets a pay raise, etc. Just Kellen Moore is interviewed virtually. Can interview in person after this upcoming week is when he's eligible. Robert Saleh interviewed in person. Niners DC job looms pretty large there. Leslie Frazier is set to interview today. I have not seen a report that interview was completed, so stand by for that one. Brian Schottenheimer is the betting favorite somehow, but he also hasn't interviewed. What are we doing out here? It's nonsense. It's a nonsense coaching search again, and I'm very frustrated by it. Chris B says, bunch of clown interviews. This front office is the worst. I just don't understand it. I just don't understand how. I'm not even that surprised, but I am disappointed. You're not really going to do anything. Like, the job's been open for a week now. What are you doing to get jobs? What is your plan here to make something happen? Or are you just going to be like, whatever, who cares? It's been a week. And you've done, I'll call it 2.5 interviews. You haven't technically interviewed Leslie Frazier yet. It's just unserious. It's unserious. Truly it is. Chris B, they hire Schotty. I have no expectations. 6-11, yay. I kind of feel like you can win more than 6. And, maybe Schotty's a fine leader, but, like, it should raise red flags when, like, no one's asked to interview that guy in years. Like, that should be and it's not like he's young, he's 51 years old. Isn't like a first-time OC. Like, he's been an OC. He's been an OC for, like, almost 15 years now. He's a known commodity. The NFL goes, we don't want him. Come on. Chris B should just kept McCarthy with these interviews. Again, it's not always up to the team. I think that they thought Mike would fold, and they'd say, "Yeah, I'll stay in this job, and I'll coach Witten." Funniest outcome is that, like, Aaron Glenn gets the Saints job, and McCarthy comes back tail tucked between his legs. Funniest outcome. Not good outcome, but funniest outcome. Funniest outcome. TTV looking like a rebuild season. If they don't try, then it's kind of like last year where it's hard to win games when you don't try to win games, It's very frustrating to me. With the way that this is being operated. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I hope they get an interview with Aaron Glenn. That would make me feel a little bit better about the search. They just settle on Brian Schottenheimer. Like, what are we doing? Like, the only hire I think would be worse than Schottenheimer is Jason Witten. Like, it's just not gonna work. There's no reason to have confidence in that. Promoting the non-play calling OC. Oh, by the way, Bones Fossil just left the Cowboys too. Just took a job with the Tennessee Titans. So that's awesome. We'll do the live show and then we'll tack that onto it at the end of it, because that's just don't know who your special teams. Like, Bones is a good special teams coach. Who's your next one? It's brutal. Just brutal. William, why would up-and-coming OCDC take this job? It's valid. But you know what? You have to at least ask to interview them. To not try to interview Joe Brady when he request an interview for Brady when he could have talked to him last week. To not have one lined up for Aaron Glenn. To even try Ben Johnson, Todd Monken, Liam Cohen, all these guys. To not even try. Like, just what effort is being given here? Like, what are we doing? Like, what is your goal? You've again lost more coaches because now Bones Fossil taking the Tennessee special teams job. It's a big hire for them. Bones is good. He ain't perfect, but if you were to get a poll of like the NFL coaches that like know special teams, like, he'd be top 5 among special teams coaches. You just lost him with no plan in place because you could have extended his contract last year. And now now we're stuck doing nothing, like just dragging our feet. I just continue to be perplexed and confused by this team. It doesn't make any sense to me. We'll have more comments and super chats and everything else here, but next up is some draft talk. Welcome to the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. Mel Kiper has updated his 2025 NFL Draft Big Board. So we're taking a look at what the board looks like and how it potentially impacts what the Dallas Cowboys could be looking at and what Mel thinks, what the Cowboys might think, kind of tying it all into one there. Now, if you want more NFL draft videos like this one, then like this video. See what I did there? That was very bad. Like the video if you want more Cowboys NFL draft videos right here on the channel. Let's hit the Mel Kiper big board. So first up, his top 5 guys that aren't going to be there, and you weren't going to go quarterback anyway. Travis Hunter is going to be long gone. Abdul Carter is going to be long gone. Mason Graham is gone. The quarterbacks aren't going to be there, and if they were there, then you probably don't want to take them anyway in a pretty bad class. So you can essentially cross them off your list. I like Will Johnson. I don't know if he's going to be 6 for me. I'm more like 7, 8, 9. He's also probably not going to be there. If he is there, I am quite happy. But again, you're picking 12, so you got to let some of the top 12 guys go off the board. Ashton Jeanty, because he is a running back, he has a chance to be there. His production was astounding for Boise State this year. If you just rank the best players on the board, Ashton Jeanty is going to at least be number 7. And if you're picking it at number 12 and the number 7 player is there, you just do it. And Jeanty might even rank higher for me than 7 when it's all said and done. I'm not going to do that stuff till much later in the process. But if Jeanty's there, like, I think that's a pretty clear-cut decision of, hey, just take the best player on the board. I also think that applies to Tet McMillan, the Arizona Wildcats wide receiver. I would wonder if because of positional value, the likelihood of Jeanty being there and McMillan not is maybe a little bit more likely. That you'd have a better chance of getting Jeanty than McMillan. Both guys fill a need. McMillan, I think, is a T. Higgins type of receiver. I would be very happy with that selection. I would be on board taking Jeanty because with the Bears hiring Ben Johnson, he might be their pick anyway, or the Raiders do it or something. Even though Jeanty wants to be a Cowboy, we'll talk about that in the future too. I would be happy with either of those guys in the top 8 of Mel's big board. But again, they're top 8, you're picking 12, might not be there. So drop a name for me. Who do you want the Cowboys to draft in round 1? Let me know in the comment section of today's with the pin comment. If the ad comes here on YouTube, it's fine. Take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Number 9 is Jalen Walker, who is a very intriguing player. That is the Georgia linebacker who is a little bit of an edge, bit of a off-ball linebacker. He's not as big as the player I'm about to give, but I think like from more of a play style perspective, he's not that much smaller either. I like a Jamie Collins, who was a Pro Bowler at one point for the Patriots, who did a lot of good stuff, could blitz, could cover. Maybe Anthony Barr in that similar-esque mold as well. Early career Vikings Barr, not Cowboys Barr. I think Walker's an intriguing defensive player who may or may not be. There's some wide opinions on him. You can look at the PFF board, has him like in the 40s for some reason. All right, let's go to 2 offensive linemen. First up is Texas's Kelvin Banks, and then LSU's Will Campbell. Both guys might be guards, and I don't know where they'll check in on my board in the end. I thought Banks was better this year. I also think the Texas offense hid him a little bit from having to do a lot of true pass protection stuff. Both guys had some high penalties. I've got concerns on both players. They'll be higher grades than Tyler Guyton was last year, but I kind of think Troy, for example, Troy Fatanu, the Washington guy, I think he's going to have a higher grade than Campbell and Banks. And Fatanu was picked later than where Mel has these guys ranked right now. So that the offensive line, plus don't want to put another premium pick onto a lineman, gives me pause there. Now, Tyler Warren, another tough player to eval. Well, not eval, but value. The eval is easy. He's awesome at football. This guy did everything for Penn State. I'd have to go back and look and find the last time a tight end had 26 carries. Like that's a lot for a tight end. The Wild Warren package worked pretty well for Penn State. They got him involved on reverses and stuff. He had 100 catches, put up, Brock Bowers numbers this year for Penn State with what Bowers did at Georgia. Tight end often also isn't the most easy transition position, which makes things a little bit dicey. But I think Warren's going to be top 10, top 15 on a lot of boards. And when you're picking 12, that's kind of right in the sweet spot for where you're at. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. It is playoff time. You've got conference championships and, of course, the big game coming up around the corner. Don't miss out on the last of the football action. The best place to win cash while watching the games is on PrizePicks. They're giving away 1 free pick, by the way, for the big game where one of the starting quarterbacks needs just to throw 1 yard to win. This is one of our conference championship game PrizePicks slates. Jalen Hurts, less than rushing yards with a knee injury. Love that one. Jaden Daniels, more than passing yards because the weather won't be as bad in theory. And James Cook, or at least for the Eagles game in particular. James Cook, more than rushing yards. He's had some pretty good success overall. Download the PrizePicks app today over at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get that $50 instantly. Number 13 is Josh Simmons, the Ohio State offensive tackle. He's a good player. Only played 6 games this year because of injury. The film was pretty impressive. Also wasn't against the best competition. Like we didn't get to see him against, Abdul Carter, which kind of stunk. But Simmons, if healthy, you'll let the phrase, if healthy would be clear-cut number 1 tackle. But do you want to take a hurt guy in round 1? Malachi Starks, safety value here. Mel doesn't like safeties, by the way. He's always kind of pushed them down on his boards. I think Starks is a pretty clear-cut round 1 player. I'm a big fan of his game. But also for Dallas, depending on what you do, safety might be a luxury pick you can't afford to take. His running mate at Georgia, Mykel Williams, who edge rusher, kind of Trayvon Walker-esque here. Big guy. Production hasn't been particularly good, but freaky athletes. I think somewhere kind of is in that range, give or take. I don't know if he's even there, and if he is, maybe edge isn't your biggest need anyway. Tight end Colston Loveland, good player. I don't really want to spend the 12th pick on him for the Cowboys. I'm kind of not too interested there. Siobhan Revell, meanwhile, the ECU cornerback, who, again, had he been healthy, might have been a top 10 pick this year. Tore his ACL 3 games in, still picked off 2 passes in those 3 games. He is a very good corner. Injuries are a valid question mark, though, for him. And again, I don't know if he's a top 12 guy. Now, what do you think is the bigger need for the Cowboys? Which side of the ball needs more help? O for offense, D for defense. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Number 18 is Walter Nolan, the Mississippi defensive tackle. The sack numbers were high. The consistent pressure rate was not as high as the guy we'll get to here in a second. It's a good defensive tackle class, but I think it could stretch into day 2. And outside of Mason Graham, I have questions and concerns about taking one of these guys top 12. Derek Harmon at Oregon, the Michigan State transfer. Sack number is not nearly as high as what Walter Nolan's were, but, well, I guess the second half less isn't that much higher, but more games for Oregon. But I also question, hey, is this the right value? Harmon's going to be, is it going to be a controversial player? Some teams are going to love him. Some might have him in the first 30. Jihad Campbell out of Alabama, who I am a fan of. I like him. He is an athletic linebacker. My issue here is, at this point, you're picking 12. 20 might be a little bit rich for me, but not by that much, if so. And still a bit of a reach in the end. At least where I have him currently. Long process. Things can certainly change. Maybe he interviews off the charts and boosts his draft stock a little bit too. Should test well at the combine. But a lot of these guys outside the top 15 in a more normal class are kind of like maybe in the top 20. And Campbell's more like a top 30 player than he's a top 20 player for me. I am very intrigued, though, by Luther Burden, who Mel's got down at number 21. I have him higher. I know the production wasn't that great this year. Got cut in half almost from a yardage perspective. The drop rate didn't really change. That was a good sign there. The yards went down. The touchdowns went down. The offense had issues. I think his yak ability, his after-catch ability, the playmaking he brings is what you really, really need right now when you don't have a quality number 2 and maybe a number 3 wide receiver. I think there's a good chance he's there at number 12. This would be kind of like, hey, you lost out on like a McMillan, Jeanty, whatever. Burden as a quote-unquote fallback, I think is a pretty good path. So grade the potential pick of Luther Burden III. A, B, C, D, or F? Let me know in the comment section of today's video. Let's double dip here on the 2 Texas A&M defensive linemen. Nick Scorton, the defensive end, and his running mate, Shamar Stewart. 2 very different types of players. Now, Scorton has been far more productive. He was more productive at Purdue than he was at A&M. He is a good run stopper. I think could do with shedding 15 pounds, kind of like I think benefited Tank Lawrence as his career went along, by the way. Shamar Stewart, gifted athlete. This guy looks good. He is a fantastic athlete. He's 6'6", 290. He never produced. He is going to be kind of in that Trayvon Walker mold, too, of like, hey, he's a great athlete, but he hasn't produced the same way you want him to. And there's James Pierce, the edge rusher out of Tennessee. You guys will not appreciate this, but I think it's accurate. Outside of the off-the-field stuff, I get some Randy Gregory vibes here. Gifted athlete, able to bend, he can get up to the quarterback. Tennessee did not trust him very much as a run support player, and that's something you're going to have to kind of figure out and vet. And then there is Kenneth Grant, the Michigan defensive tackle, who is going to be a fantastically testing athlete. He chased down Penn State's like 4.4 speed back. The production wasn't as great this year. Again, the Michigan team wasn't as good anyway. But I think like upside-wise, DT-wise, you will have people that have Mason Graham, I'm talking like NFL teams, that have Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant 1-2 among their defensive tackles. Now, we will have plenty of NFL draft videos for you right here on the channel. Hit that sub button if you haven't already so you don't miss out. There are 5 more names that I want to mention that weren't on Mel's top 25 that I actually think should at least be in the conversation to an extent. Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State didn't have the most productive year the past 2 seasons. Injury is a big factor back in 2023. But he was a 1,000-yard guy in 2022. And if you want a running mate, Egbuka's proven he can be that guy. I like Luther Burden more. Not everyone agrees with me, and that's okay. But I do think he is in that, round 1 conversation. Would not be surprised if we check in like in a month or 2 and, Mel's got Armand Membu in the top 10 or top 20 of his big board. Didn't get much love because he's a Missouri offensive lineman. The numbers are very impressive. Didn't allow a sack. Didn't allow a hit. The run blocking grades were very good. Got guard tackle flexibility. And a class that has questions on the offensive line, I would not sleep on Armand Membu. I know Dane Brugger's a huge fan of his too. Tyleik Williams, another good defense lineman of Ohio State. I am of the mindset, hey, if we're gonna put, guys like Oregon's Harmon, we're gonna put Walter Nolan in there. Kind of feel like we should be throwing in guys like Tyleik Williams in this bucket, who has really kind of gotten things going in the CFP semifinals. He's been very impactful on that front. 7 TFLs, 2.5 sacks overall. The entire Ohio State defense looks good. Williams, the numbers don't pop off the screen, but his play does. And there's Mike Green, the Marshall edge rusher. Again, not on Mel's big board. The production don't lie. This is stupid production. Very easy to fall in love with Mike Green because he is just constantly around the ball. constantly making plays. I think there is a very real chance he ends up flashing with his combine testing. I would bet he's a round 1 pick. And then a guy that I don't have a great feel for where he ends up going, but I like him a lot, is Jahdae Barron, the Texas corner. Didn't allow a touchdown all year long, 5 interceptions, 9 pass breakups, under 280 yards over the course of the season. Stuff's really good. I don't know if he's a true top 12, top 15 pick, but I was a huge fan of Brian Branch, and I think his first year with the Lions is kind of like a nickel corner almost. I think Barron could fit that mold pretty well. Now, we will have a mailbag coming up here on today's show. 2 ways to get on said show. Number 1 is to use hashtag Cowboys or skip the line altogether. Hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat. We got a lot of super thanks to get to, but I do think that getting doing the Super Chat will obviously ensure you get on, but there's a lot of super thanks, so maybe Super Chat's a guarantee. But get your questions in general, and we'll let Chris be the final arbitrator on that front. A super thanks, one of several, to begin today's Cowboys Report mailbag from CJ. Didn't the Jets interview like 17 candidates? Obviously filming this on Monday, January 20th, before the Jets have made their final decision. But yeah, they interviewed, I think it was 17. It might have been 18, at least requested ones maybe. They did a real coaching search. The Bears interviewed a ton of candidates and still ended up hiring Ben Johnson. The Cowboys, meanwhile, not doing the same thing. Joseph, how does this sound to you? Aaron Glenn for head coach, OC Lincoln Riley, DC Robert Saleh. I mean, I'm down, but I don't see any scenario in which Lincoln Riley says, I'm going to leave my high-paying college football job, pay a big-time buyout, or have Jerry pay a big-time buyout, to come be the offensive coordinator for an NFL team. There's no chance Lincoln chooses to do that. These are coming in via super thanks. It's like a super chat, except it's on demand. Edit your message, send in whatever. Even if it's Tom, you suck, we will give you some love and feature you on the show. Hit that super thanks button, a little heart with the dollar sign in it icon right now. Richard Robinson, I agree that Kellen's offenses were better than McCarthy's. His play calling is ridiculous. Lining up 21 at center is an example. Comes across as a wonder kid, Garrett 2.0, but is no Ben Johnson. It's a no for me. That's why I like to do a real search. You're right, and this is something I'd point out. Like, Kellen's offense were better than McCarthy's. That is a fact. Let's not try to claim otherwise somehow. And he's been better as an OC than some of the other guys that are available. Schottenheimer, for example. But he does galaxy brain stuff sometimes. I mean, you saw it in the Eagles playoff game. 2nd and 7. Just give the ball to Saquon Barkley. Don't be cute and try to run the bootleg with an injured quarterback. Just give it to Saquon 3 times. They stop you. They stop you. He does give me too many vibes of Jason Garrett 2.0. That's why I want a real search. So I have better options than just giving the job to Kellen Moore. Richard, so let me get this straight. We let DQ go over McCarthy to dump him a year later. Now both are former coordinators, former players, are playing for chance to go to the Super Bowl while we watch from the couch. Plus, we have the longest championship drought. This sucks. It does suck. It does. Now, I still question if a Dan Quinn, Brian Schottenheimer led offense were going to be enough for you. But still, they made it further. This is what's not fun for me on Sunday, is an NFC East team is guaranteed to be playing in the Super Bowl. I don't like that. And it's the ones who got away, right? That's also not fun. It's like going to the wedding of your ex-girlfriend, which I've never done, but I would assume it would be like this. Like, that can't be fun for you. And by the way, she dumped you. That's not fun. Who are you cheering for in the NFC Championship game? E for you want the Eagles to win, C for you want the Commanders to win, or A for you want the asteroid to come crashing down, / B for Bane coming in and blowing up the stadium like he did in The Dark Knight Rises. Get those votes in, E, C, or A. Very serious show we have here sometimes. Marcus, you're not getting Dion because there's a good chance his son will go to the Giants. Not going to be okay coaching against and sending Micah Parsons after his son. I think that actually could be a concern. Like, whether it's like a main concern, I think there are other reasons why Dion's probably not going to come here. But I don't know how you feel about coaching against his son. Being like, yeah, Micah, go wreck my son. Like, that's probably not. There is some semblance of conflict of interest there, you know? Daniel Potts, how do you see Saquon in the playoffs and not draft Ashton Jeanty? Thanks. Ask the Giants. Running backs, in many ways, are an accelerant. Like, if you have the fire going, if you have the kindling, if it's lit and it's going, you toss some gasoline on there, boom, great explosion. If you don't have anything set up and you just kind of toss gasoline like the Giants did with no offensive line and Saquon Barkley and bad quarterback play, okay, it just kind of smells. It's just like, and this like isn't fun for anybody involved. So if you build the right support structure and then you drop that running back in there, it's really good. It's kind of like whipped cream on ice cream too. Like, no one just wants to eat whipped cream like as like an actual dessert. Like, you need more than that. You add whipped cream, it's delicious. It's a great topping. Or chocolate sauce or whatever topping you like to use. Would you draft Ashton Jeanty? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's video. Ecuador Man AOG, trade down for Walter Nolan and then Savion Williams. That's the TCU wide receiver in the second round. Don't hate it. Getting an impact DT and an impact receiver who's a little bit different than what you have right now. I think Nolan could be a good 3-tech for you. I'm not mad at that at all, actually. Today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. It is the final few weeks of playoff action. Don't miss out on the last of it. With PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching conference games and, of course, the big game coming up in a little bit. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. You can get your money in about as little as 15 minutes if you end up winning. Download the PrizePicks app today over at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5. Those $50, by the way, are indeed guaranteed. So if you ride with me on Jalen Hurts less than yards on the ground, Jaden Daniels more than passing yards, and James Cook more than rushing yards, you ride, win or lose, you get that $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. From Jace, what about Isaiah Bond? Not early. I think Matthew Golden, especially down the stretch here, was far more impressive. Bond brings you speed. His inability to consistently be on the field is a pretty big red flag after that. But, day 2-ish, there's talent there for sure. From Patriot King TV, first, there are no words invented yet to describe how much I hate the Eagles. So go Commanders. Second, I think the Cowboys' year is any different if Dak plays the entire year. I do think you get better results. Now, in the end, the results aren't good enough. That final game, I think you do beat the Commanders. I kind of think you beat the Bengals as well. But you would have been one and done. Like, you would have gotten trounced. You probably would have lost to the Bucs. And you wouldn't have beat the Detroit Lions. So, best case is you kind of do what a lot of us thought they were going to do. Win 9 to 10 games. Maybe make the playoffs. Maybe win one at most. And it wasn't enough in the end. And that's kind of what matters to me more. Vince, how in the world did we lose to the Bears in the battle for Ben Johnson? We had the better roster, culture, quarterback, etc. The Yacht Boys really messed this up. Well, the simplest answer is you never called Ben Johnson. You never tried to talk to him. I think you probably do have a better culture than the Bears because that was a mess, but you're also bringing a new head coach, so I don't really know how much culture matters for your new head coach. Like, he's going to bring in his own culture, right? But like, culture's a funny word sometimes for coaching searches. Like, it kind of becomes like a catch-all for what people like just want to see that they like the guy or don't like the guy. Sometimes, like, what do you mean by culture? There's this great, actually, D online that I've always liked. It's kind of like, what is culture? I want to win games. Your culture's good if you win games. Your culture's bad if you don't. Right? You got a far more proven QB. maybe you have the better roster. But in the end, if you never called the guy, and also your ownership structures is a huge problem. The constant meddling is like there was the report that Ben Johnson was looking for accountability and admitting of previous mistakes made. That is not Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones. It's not what they are at all. Clay the Cowboy, what would it look like for a trade down? It's a good question. Depends on how far you want to move down. Right now you're picking at 12. Let's say you move down to like 15, a give or take. At that point, you're kind of looking at, maybe you get an early 4th round pick if you can get, or at least the value of a 4th round pick. Maybe you want to drop down to 20. At that point, you're looking at, early 3rd round pick, late 2nd round pick, somewhere in that range. You want to drop all the way down to like 25, and now you're looking at like a mid 2nd round pick. And if you wanted to move all the way down to the back end of the 1st round, which is probably too much, now you're looking at like top of the 2nd round and, maybe actually get a little future 1st round pick in there as well. So it depends on how far you want to move down and with what you're targeting too. Zach Crosby, thoughts on a George Pickens trade? Jerry loves characters in the receiver room. Pickens, once pressure to be number 1, would definitely get his catches when CD's covered. I'm not sure if Pittsburgh ever trade with Dallas, but it seems like Pickens is definitely gone. I would not be surprised if Pickens gets moved on from in Pittsburgh because that is a kind of an ugly situation because Pickens is a problem child. And a Steelers team that has one good receiver in Pickens, potentially trading him should raise red flags. I don't want to scout the helmet, but I do also want to point out that every time a troubled Steelers receiver goes elsewhere, he gets worse and kind of falls apart. And I forget who said it. I forget who made the joke, but it was like, if the Steelers draft you as a receiver, you might have to question if you are an asshole because that's kind of all they do. I don't want to put Pickens on this team. I feel like he wants to be a 1. He's going to get mad and frustrated when he's not getting the ball, and he lets that drastically affect him. Like he won't block. He'll stop trying on routes. He'll throw a fit. I don't want to deal with that. So name a player who you want to trade for. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Justin, honestly, the Commanders and Eagles both in the conference could be a good thing. Hopefully it'll make Jerry change his ways. Crazy to say, but true. Look, I hope that's true, but do I believe in it? It feels like hopium. I hope that it would change their ways, but they don't seem to care a lot. From Landon Shepard, could Dallas be interested in Lynn because you could bring Cliff in as an OC? No. I don't really know if they actually want Anthony as a head coach candidate. I kind of wonder if they look at him as maybe an offensive coordinator option, which is, I mentioned on yesterday's show, I'd heard that if they had moved on from McCarthy last year, Lynn was going to be a prime OC candidate for them. But also, the Commanders would never let Cliff Kingsbury take a lateral job. That's not going to happen. So if you want Cliff, he needs to be your head coach. It's the only path in which it happens. Don't miss out on any Cowboys news and rumors, updates, mailbags, trades, draft free agency. You name it, we got you covered. Hit that sub button right now. From JJ, how do you feel about losing Bones Fossil? Sucks. He was a good special teams coach. Not perfect. No coach is. Had players who made mistakes. Too many penalties at times. Don't let him get crazy with the fake punts at times. But he's good. He was a huge factor in you getting success out of Brandon Aubrey and Kevontae Turpin. If we're gonna, I think, correctly give position coaches credit and blame for players having success, we should probably give Bones credit for Turpin and Aubrey some too. And he even got decent play out of Brett Maher for a little bit. Anger was a Pro Bowl punter. Trent Sig didn't make any mistakes. That sucks. I don't like losing Bones Fossil. And by the way, him taking a downgrade to go to Tennessee, red flags galore as far as I'm concerned. From Brokov, if we're going to go mystery box, why not bet on Josh McCown? I do wonder if he's ready for that role, but I would also have him very high on the list of offensive coordinator options. Quarterback coach to head coach is a pretty massive jump. I don't know if he's ready for that right now, but Like, if you're like, I'm going to hire Robert Saleh, boy, I got a lot of interest in McCown as my OC. Chris Ortega, if the Dak hamstring is as bad as some are saying, any chance we get Sanders to get the sun with his pick? Will trading parts make this possible? I don't know who's saying the hamstring's bad. He's going to be back in time for offseason workouts and everything. So, not sure what you saw, Chris. I don't know who's saying it's bad. It's a hamstring injury. It tore. It's not good. But like, he's off crutches. It's not like he's going to have 18 more surgeries or something crazy. You know, it's not like both knees got blown out or anything. I've mentioned this before. You can trade Micah Parsons and go get Shadur Sanders. Like, the Browns would do that in a heartbeat for you. The Titans probably would too. It's a terrible idea for Dallas, though. Now I'm getting rid of my best player, costing myself assets to make my team better to get a quarterback who I think you're hoping has a career of the caliber of Dak Prescott. It's not something I really want to do. Matthew, I think he means Kellen Moore. I saw the only legit options I've interviewed. I really love Glenn, though. I think Jerry Jones with the Shotty news out, so Kellen Moore would seem even better. I could see it. It also just like, why? Again, my main issue here. Why are these my only options? I don't like that. What is your confidence level right now? Because mine's low. Mine is very low. What is your confidence level right now in the Jones boys? Sound off for me in the comments section of today's show. We'll give some shout-outs here as well. Give you a bit of a bad pause there. That's my bad, Chris. Again, news that's come in. Bones Fossil joining the Tennessee Titans as their special teams coach, which I never even saw Tennessee officially fire their special teams coach, Cole Anderson. They never announced it. They're just like, oh, should we get Bones Fossil? Let's do it. That is a losing Bones Fossil. And, Dan Graziano reported they tried to make a late push to keep Fossil, but they don't have a head coach. All self-inflicted. All of that was self-inflicted because you just could have extended him last year or made your coaching staff decisions when you had some semblance of control over these guys. And you didn't. They have officially interviewed Leslie Frazier, too, so they can now hire a coach at any point. They've fulfilled the Rooney rule. Also, I think it's very telling, the pin poll, that no one's voting for Leslie Frazier. Actual officially interviewed candidate, and nobody wants him. Tells you a lot there. One final segment coming off, then we will sign off for today's live show. Coming up on today's Cowboys Report, we'll talk Ashton Jeanty here for the Dallas Cowboys. He wants to be a Cowboy. And some Cowboys trade rumors. Some pretty intriguing ones that we'll get to on today's show. Before we get to that, if you haven't already, hit that sub button. YouTube.com/CowboysTV. More free Cowboys YouTube videos each and every single day. Let's talk Ashton Jeanty. He has made it clear multiple different times now. He wants to be a Dallas Cowboy. Sometimes that happens. Micah Parsons. Sometimes it does not, like a Myles Garrett. Here's what Jeanty said most recently. I would love to play for the Cowboys. It'd be like a dream come true. I used to play in their practice stadium for all our home games in high school. It would just feel like I'm at home, honestly. I ain't going to say too much, but Dallas always had a good running back. When they have a good running back, they play a lot better. Know what I'm saying? Jeanty, originally from Florida, but spent a lot of his time in the Frisco area, basically, I think, depending on how much you really let positional value stuff influence you and whatnot, this is a really great football player. This is a guy that's probably going to be a consensus top 5, top 10 player on the boards. Went to Lone Star High School up in Frisco, Texas, after being born in Jacksonville, Florida. I believe he was an Army brat growing up, I believe is what his background was there. And the Cowboys have been linked so heavily because they've got massive question marks in the running back room. Rico Dowdle, who played very well this year for the Cowboys, but isn't a Jeanty caliber player/prospect, is a free agent. So that leaves Deuce Vaughn. Malik Davis is re-signed on a futures deal, but he was a practice squad player pretty much his entire career. And Hunter Lipke, the fullback. So, yeah, running back is obviously an area of you're going to have some questions and some desire to add some talent there. So if he's there, and I don't know if he's going to be, we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but if Jeanty's there at number 12 for you, would you take him in round 1? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's video. It is the pinned comment on today's show, so if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Now again, if Jeanty's there, he's going to be the best player on the board. The numbers are incredible. The play is incredible. He's what I call one of the easy eval guys of like, you can just show someone who hasn't really watched football before, like give him like just like 10 plays in a row to watch and say, watch this guy. And it's like, he's really good, isn't he? It just that happens 5 to 10 guys every year. It's like, this, don't overthink this one. Now, there are absolutely very valid positional value concerns. And in many ways, I'll stick with this analogy, running backs are they're fuel to your fire. You got a nice little fire going, you toss some gasoline on that, boom, it explodes. Look at the Eagles with Saquon Barkley this year. If you don't have the right situation, you throw gasoline on something, all it does is smell. And that was the Giants and Saquon Barkley. Jeanty can have that type of impact. If you have faith in your offensive line and your offense overall, your coaching staff, everything else, if you feel good about your current organizational structure on that side of the ball, if you fill your needs in free agency, you can get a lot more people on board with drafting Jeanty in round 1 because it can elevate, it can raise your ceiling. Offensive linemen are the floor. It's tough to have to be a good back behind a bad offensive line. It's easy to be a fine back behind a good offensive line, but you can't be a great back unless you have at least a positive offensive line, and a player like Jeanty can become a truly elite back. Now, I think there are a couple Jeanty fits that could happen before the Cowboys go on the clock at number 12. The Raiders at number 6, depending on what they do at quarterback, stand out as an obvious issue. The Saints at 9, my boy Trace wants him. I'd be surprised. They just paid Alvin Kamara. The Bears at 10, if they've hired Ben Johnson, if they want to embrace the DeAndre Swift, Ashton Jeanty, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs combination, that I don't think would surprise too many people. And a lot of people have been like, the 49ers. Like, that's not what you like. McCaffrey's hurt. I'd be surprised if they spent a first-round pick on a running back. But people have mentioned them, so felt worth adding here as well. Today's show is made possible by GameTime. GameTime's got a new feature called GameTime Picks. Makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff, only show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. It is curation to help you find better value on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, everything else in between. The all-in pricing feature shows total cost up front, so there are no surprise fees at checkout. Game Time guarantee is this. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app today, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but go download Game Time today for last-minute tickets, lowest price, all guaranteed. Link and the promo code will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Let's talk trade rumors here. PFF listing Cowboys defensive tackle Mazi Smith as one of their top trade candidates in the NFL this offseason. To which I say, press X to doubt for a variety of reasons here. Now, a big point PFF made, which is accurate, was, boy, Mazi's been a disappointment for the Dallas Cowboys, hasn't he? Better this year. The bar was very low. More tackles, more TFLs. Pressure rate dipped in part because they were asking different things out of him. I will say, and this is the one thing that you can get more positive thoughts on from Mazi, very obviously, and I don't think anyone watching goes, he has been as good as I hoped he was going to be. No one thinks that. We did see real growth down the stretch. That PFF run grade, as low as it was, he had one game in the back half of the year that wasn't higher than his overall grade. So we saw growth as the year went on. I'm hoping for a real, a real offseason of development and not rehab would benefit Mazi Smith. I also do not trust him right now because he hasn't shown us enough to trust him there. So what is your confidence level in Mazi Smith? Scale it for me from 1 to 10 in the comment section of today's show. Now, a big negative on this idea is the money. Mazi doesn't cost you very much this upcoming year. It's $3.62 million. That's it. You lose money, though, if you cut him. Minus $4.22 million before June 1st. It is minus $2.56 after June 1st. You could trade him right now and save less than $300,000 on the salary cap, and then you're counting somebody else that is going to count for the top 51, so you don't actually save any money. You can save about $2 trading him after June 1st. That might be plausible, but I look at this defensive tackle room right now, and for as much lack of faith I have in Mazi Smith, and I hope he's better like he was down the stretch this year, that's the one guy that I think I can play on an NFL team right now. I can't play Denzel Jackson. I don't think I can really play Justin Rogers either. So given all of my numbers issues at the defensive tackle spot, I'm going to hold on to Mazi Smith right now. And I will add more talent. And I won't have to rely on him being my number 2 defensive tackle. I will add 2 to 3 guys, depending on what I do with Osa Odigizua as well. One more trade idea from Bleacher Report. They again advocating for a Travis Etienne trade. Now, look, I had mentioned this to trade on. I was more intrigued by it because we hadn't seen Rico Dowdle take a step forward the way that he did down the stretch. Now, I'm actually not nearly as interested in it because I don't have the same level of team control. I think I can find a running back as well. I don't know if I need to go down that route the same way I thought if you want to re-sign Rico. If you don't re-sign Rico, maybe things change a little bit there. But name a player who you want the Dallas Cowboys to trade for. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Etienne's numbers, they fell off a cliff this year, didn't they? And injury was a pretty big part of this overall for Etienne. Tank Bigsby finally emerged for Jacksonville. The numbers down the stretch for Etienne, really looking beyond the first couple games of the season. He went over 50 yards just once, and it was one of the 2 times he got more than 13 carries in a game. I think the injuries were a big factor there. I like the player. I don't know if I want to pay him $6.14 million. Now, he's due a fully guaranteed $6.14 for the 2025 campaign on that 5th-year option, by the way. But that's kind of a lot to pay. Like, I don't think if I wanted to re-sign Rico Dowdle, he might count like $3 million on the salary cap for this year. I think that's all it's going to cost. I don't think it's going to be very expensive. So I would be a bit more inclined to just say I'll ride it out with Rico Dowdle and draft somebody on day 2 instead. Pick head coach for me. The 4 options linked here to the Dallas Cowboys. 42% say Kellen Moore. 39% say Robert Saleh. Leslie Frazier has 7%. Brian Schottenheimer has 12%. Again, I hate that these are my options. That's not fair. Other coaching notes here. Leslie Frazier has completed his interview, so the Rooney Rule's been fulfilled. Cowboys can make a hire at any point. And Bones Fossil has taken the special teams coordinator job with the Tennessee Titans, which he's taken a job that head coach is kind of on the hot seat. It's not very good. We will have you covered on all Cowboys news. Whatever other coaching search updates we get, we will have you covered here. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/CowboysTV. Now, I will make note, once this wraps up here, we are going to be live 7 p.m. Eastern Time tonight on the Chat Sports YouTube channel for the Ohio State Notre Dame game. What's going to happen here, for those of you watching live on the Cowboys Report, not like on demand later or something, you're going to be automatically redirected to that stream. So what I would do is, make sure you're subscribed. You'll get a button to click Notify Me, and then you can hit that Notify Me button and come back once the game gets going, later tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern for our live stream. So go subscribe, youtube.com/chatsports. More Cowboys videos all week long.